In a small village in Ghana, nestled between rolling green hills and a winding river, lived a bright-eyed boy named Kofi. The village was alive with the sense of boiling palm nut soup and freshly pounded fufu, and the sound of laughter rising from games played in the dusty courtyards. Families grew maize and cassava on small plots of land, and every day, children helped their parents carry water in calabashes, which are hollowed-out gourds used for all sorts of tasks, from storing food to serving meals. In many parts of West Africa, the calabash has a special significance. It symbolizes sustenance and community, passed down through generations as a humble yet indispensable tool. Kofi had grown up seeing calabashes used in village ceremonies, marriages, and harvest festivals. Little did he know that one particular calabash would soon change his life and the fortunes of his entire village. Kofi lived in a modest home with his parents, who worked tirelessly in the fields to support their family. Even with their hard work, they sometimes struggled to have enough yams, plantains, and beans to feed themselves year-round. One day, as Kofi was gathering firewood near the riverbank, he stumbled upon a beautiful, intricately carved calabash, half buried in the sandy soil. It was unlike any calabash he had ever seen. The surface was smooth and etched with swirling designs that seemed to tell a story of dancing figures and abundant harvests. Curious, he picked it up, wiped away the sand, and tapped it lightly with his fingers. A soft echo came from inside, like a gentle drum. What a strange calabash. I wonder if Mother can use it to serve palm wine or store water. He tucked the gourd under his arm and carried it back to his parents. They admired its craftsmanship, but were uncertain of its origins. Nonetheless, they decided to keep it, thinking it could be a sign of good fortune. Later that afternoon, as the family prepared lunch, Kofi asked his mother for some gari, dried cassava flakes, to place in his new calabash. He wanted to see how well it worked as a serving bowl. Carefully, he poured a small handful inside. To his astonishment, the moment the flakes hit the bottom, the calabash began to glow faintly. In the blink of an eye, the gari doubled in quantity, overflowing the calabash and spilling onto the table. Kofi stared wide-eyed. Had he imagined it? But there it was, twice as much gari as before. His mother rushed to see the commotion and nearly dropped her ladle in surprise. Kofi's father, coming in from outside, looked on with disbelief. They experimented again, this time with a few peanuts, and once again, the calabash doubled them. Realizing they had discovered a magical object, the family huddled together in the corner of the small kitchen. "This is a powerful gift, my son. We must keep it secret. If word spreads, others might misuse this power." But Kofi's heart swelled with excitement. What if this magical calabash could help not just his family, but also the entire village? Many neighbors struggled to make ends meet. Mothers worried about feeding their children, and farmers faced unpredictable rains that sometimes ruined their crops. Kofi couldn't ignore their hardships. He decided to share the calabash's bounty discreetly, beginning a mission of quiet generosity. Over the next few weeks, Kofi and his parents gathered small amounts of beans, rice, and dried fish from their own limited pantry, placing them into the calabash to double. Then, under the cover of night, Kofi would leave baskets of food at the doorsteps of families most in need. The village soon buzzed with rumors of a mysterious helper. People awoke to find enough food to fill their cooking pots, yet no one knew who to thank. One evening, however, an elderly man named Nana Panyan caught a glimpse of Kofi slipping a basket of yams outside his hut. Nana Panyan was known to be shrewd and somewhat greedy. Although respected as one of the oldest in the community, he often demanded extra tributes of food from villagers under the pretext of protecting traditions. Intrigued by the boy's mysterious nighttime activities, Nana Panyan decided to follow Kofi and soon discovered the unbelievable sight: a calabash that doubled every piece of food placed in it. Aha! So this is how that boy and his family have been providing for the village. If I had that calabash, I could accumulate enough food to sell beyond the village and become very wealthy. Everyone would depend on me. That night, Nana Panyan confronted Kofi, demanding that the boy hand over the magic calabash. Panicked, Kofi refused, knowing that if the elder's greed prevailed, the gift would no longer be used selflessly. Nana Panyan returned to his hut in anger, plotting to expose Kofi's secret to the entire village and claim the calabash for himself. As the sun rose the next day, Nana Panyan gathered a crowd around the chief's meeting tree, a large odum that stood at the heart of the village. He announced that Kofi had been hiding powerful magic that rightfully belonged to the community. The villagers murmured in confusion. Some felt grateful for the mysterious help they'd been receiving, while others worried about the potential for misuse. Kofi and his parents stood before the chief, who listened gravely to Nanapanyan's accusations. The elder insisted that the calabash should be handed over to him for safekeeping, promising he would distribute food fairly to all. But Kofi knew better. He bravely stepped forward. "Great chief, I only wanted to help the hungry. If this calabash falls into the wrong hands, it could bring greed and strife to our village. I beg you, let my family continue using it to provide for those in need." A tense silence followed. The villagers exchanged uneasy glances. They recognized Kofi's good heart and the many nights he had quietly fed them. At last, the chief spoke. "This calabash is indeed a miracle, but also a test of our unity and morality. Nanapanyan, you accuse Kofi of misusing magic, but it seems he has only done good. I decree that the calabash shall remain with Kofi's family, to be used under the oversight of our village council, ensuring everyone benefits." Nanapanyan fumed, but he could not defy the chief's decision in broad daylight. Resentful, he snuck into Kofi's family compound that night, determined to seize the calabash. Slipping through the shadows, he managed to steal the gourd from its hiding place in the corner of their modest kitchen. By the time Kofi realized what happened, Nanapanyan had vanished into the darkness. Fearing the worst, Kofi and his parents immediately raised the alarm. Villagers lit lanterns and torches, forming search parties. Meanwhile, Nanapanyan fled toward the riverbank, dreaming of the fortunes he would amass. In his haste, he slipped on the muddy embankment and dropped the calabash. It tumbled into the flowing water with a loud splash, drifting out of sight. Horrified, Nanapanyan reached helplessly, but the current was too strong. When the villagers arrived, they found Nanapanyan soaked and distraught, the magic calabash gone. His greed had led to its loss for everyone. Word spread quickly, and despair crept over the village. Kofi felt tears sting his eyes, worried that his chance to help people had disappeared with the gourd. But the chief placed a comforting hand on Kofi's shoulder. "Do not lose heart, my child. Your desire to share and care for others is more powerful than any magical object. Look at how you have brought people together. We shall overcome this loss just as we have faced hardships before, relying on each other and our community spirit." Days passed without a trace of the calabash. Yet something remarkable happened. Those who had benefited from Kofi's generosity began to step up, offering to help in return. Families that had gathered extra produce now shared with neighbors. Fishermen doubled their efforts, ensuring that even the poorest had fish for dinner. The entire village seemed to embrace the spirit of giving that Kofi's magic calabash had inspired. One morning, as Kofi walked along the riverbank, he stumbled upon a curious sight. Wedged among the reeds was a battered calabash, covered in a layer of silt. It had lost its elaborate carvings, worn away by the rough journey downstream. With trembling hands, Kofi scooped it up. Could this be his lost treasure? To find out, he placed a small piece of bread inside. This time, nothing happened. The once magical gourd remained ordinary. A pang of sadness struck Kofi, yet he also felt a sense of closure. Magic or not, the real miracle had already taken root in the hearts of the villagers. From that day on, Kofi continued to help his family and community, minus the supernatural doubling of food. His generous nature and the village's unity, however, remained as strong as ever. People no longer relied on secret magic, but on the power of cooperation and compassion. And though the calabash's spell was gone, the joy of sharing took its place, proving that true abundance is found where kindness and solidarity flourish. Nanapanyan, humbled by his failure and haunted by guilt, sought forgiveness from the chief and the villagers. In time, he learned that a life guided by selfishness only brings loss, while generosity builds bonds that endure. And so, the village thrived, fueled not by an enchanted calabash, but by the goodness of its people. Kofi's legacy lived on in every act of kindness, every shared meal, and every laugh echoing in the fields. In Ghana, and across every land, his story remains a testament to how a giving heart can unite communities, proving that sometimes the greatest magic of all is the power of love and generosity.